Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am the one and only Naboxid, and this is hashtag Backtrack. So, let's get right down to business, shall we? At Supatrupa2 asks, what is a hobby you have always wanted to take up? I would like to have taken up like a musical instrument, like a guitar. As you know, I love music, a lot of different kinds of music, whether it be video game music, disco. I've talked a few times about my music collection, how like Sarah McLachlan is one of my top non-video game music collections. I'm sure I've mentioned somewhere along the lines that I have everything from Eminem to Celine Dion to the Bee Gees to Nobuo Uematsu on my MP3 player. So I would like to have at some point just like learn the guitar and try to do something with that. Just see where it took me. But I grew up poor, so that made it so that I never had the guitar. And there you go. So, next question from Supatrupa2. If you were in wrestling, what would your costume be like? I remember playing the second SmackDown game from the PlayStation 1. There was a pair of pants that you could use, or a pair of tights, where it literally was just black, but with different colored circles, so it looked like that there was a disco light on it. That's actually something that I would probably use for wrestling tights. I may or may not have a vest to go with it. So, there you go. Let's see. At Supatrupa2 asks, if you could be in any video game world, which world would it be? I would have to pick one of my two favorite games, Final Fantasy VI or Chrono Trigger. I would like to live in Chrono Trigger because, well, time traveling. Who would not want to time travel? But I would probably pick Final Fantasy VI ahead of that because, well, in a world where there's like magical beings that you can extract magic from and learn it. So yeah, And the last question from Supatrupa2. Are there any genres, consoles, platforms, or series that you've wanted to get into but never put in the time or the money? Let's see, genres. Okay, I guess we'll start with genres. Well, I guess I could have gotten more into first-person shooters, but it's just something that never really was that big of an interest for me. So, let's see, and for consoles, let's see, what consoles would I wanted to get into? The Wii. For me, with systems, I generally gear more towards Nintendo handhelds, like the DS and the 3DS. So, but the last time I actually got a like a home console system from Nintendo was the N64, and that was from a cash converters pawn shop. So obviously by then it had things had already advanced. I think they were at least on the GameCube at that point, and then the Wii, and now the Wii U. But let's see, yeah, I would have tried the Wii U maybe. Platform. Okay, I'm assuming you mean I'm assuming that consoles are the same as platforms. And as far as series are concerned, let's see, what would be a series that I would want to have gotten into? I would, let's see, because I do play Mario games. I do play Zelda games. I obviously play Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest. What series would I want to have played? Maybe the Fire Emblem. It's just, I've just never bothered to pick one up yet. So maybe the Fire Emblem or Breath of Fire series. And that's from Supa Trupa 2. So now to see what else. At Disco Sacco, Discolius. Discolius asks, how would you book the Royal Rumble? Well, I would book 3 main points. I would try to booking the winner. I would book someone to go on a massive tear, eliminating 6, 7, 8 guys and just putting on a really dominant performance. And then I would pick a third person to go a long way. Say 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes long. Let's see. I would consider having CM Punk as the winner of the Rumble, because Daniel Bryan has a concussion, so at this point, what's going on with Daniel Bryan is in the air. So I would consider having CM Punk win it. I would have either Batista or Roman Reigns do the whole tear. Batista is coming back at the Royal Rumble, and he's entered it. And Roman Reigns is looking to be a breakout star coming up soon, so someone like that could have the big tear where they eliminate 7, 8, 9, 10 guys and just run roughshod over everyone. Who would I have go a long distance? I would want someone like a Dolph Ziggler to go an extended period of time. Someone on that level. Like Dolph Ziggler, Damien Sandow. Maybe consider 1 or 2 particular spots for guys like maybe a Heath Slater or a Santino Marella, who are just kind of not given a whole lot, or basically just jobbers. So give 1 or 2 of them a good spot where they can, it's oh wow, that was awesome. And aside from that, some surprise returns, because there's always a surprise returns. A few years ago, Diesel was in. RVD was in the Rumble one time as a surprise entrant. Booker T. This year I would definitely want Jake the Snake Roberts to be in there as a surprise, just as like a surprise entrant. Let's see who else would be a good surprise entrant. No, I can't think of anyone else that like immediately as a surprise entrant. So, next up, we have more from at Discolius. Have you given any more thought to how you'd do a Chrono Trigger sequel? Yeah, you asked me that from hashtag Chrono Trigger. And since I'm not topless in the snow, that was funny. So what else would I add for a Chrono Trigger sequel? I would make 1999 AD a more explorable era. Because for this stuff, I'm going based on the Super Nintendo version. Okay, so forget the DS, forget the PS1 version, I'm going off the Super Nintendo version. So, 1999 AD, as you remember, was just to fight Lavos. I would make 1999 AD a completely explorable area the same way that 1000 AD is to 2300 AD. Since the future is changed, I would have 2300 look completely different. Because there would be no more ruin. There would be no more like big ruins from Lavos, because Lavos is dead. Let's see, what else? I would basically have the new final boss would have to be from 2300 AD, from the future that he changed. Maybe something like technology has run wild, because remember, you did not kill Mother Brain until 2300 AD. So you could still potentially have Mother Brain as basically to the sequel what Magus was to Chrono Trigger, basically like a halfway through boss, but Mother Brain could be serving an even higher mainframe or something like that. And as far as a sequel, for the sake of the sequel, we're gonna say screw Chrono Cross as a sequel. As much as I do enjoy the soundtrack in the game Chrono Cross, it's like there is no way that Guardia is losing to Poor. Just give Chrono a gold stud and a couple turbo ethers and let him just do Lumnair to everyone. And he'll send those Porian bitches back up the mama's pussies, and you know that. Chrono will dominate by himself against the Porian army. So there's no way that Guardia is getting taken over by Poor. I would have the game start with the Epoch. We would go based off using the bucket at the end of time or the telepod, and you would just face all 3 stages of Lavos. And you would still have the Epoch to travel through time and have it break down. Because remember, even though Lavos is dead, he still sent Melchior to 1000 AD, he still sent Magus to 600 AD, Jasper's still at the end of time, Balthazar was still sent to the future, so like to 2300 AD, so I would still have, and that's another thing, that Balthazar, now that the future's changed, he's not exactly living in a run-down, ruined world anymore. So you could have Balthazar actually be a little more of a sane character. He obviously still would have to have built the epoch, but you can still work with that, and you would have to have that epoch break down, and you would have to seek out Balthazar to fix it. Yeah, there's a lot of things you could do with a Chrono Trigger sequel. So that's a little more thoughts that I put into it. And speaking of thoughts, Discolius asks, what are your thoughts on the WWE Network? I like the idea. For those who don't know, WWE is launching a network. The format is a lot like Netflix, where you will pay $10 a month. You have to have a 6-month commitment. But it's like an internet-based service where you can go on your computer and watch all the pay-per-views. They have like WCW and ECW stuff on there because, of course, they have the rights to those ones, to those companies. Like a lot of the documentaries and a lot of the other stuff that goes along with it. So, based on like all the wrestling stuff that WWE has, $10 a month, even with the 6-month commitment, is still a great deal. In fact, for the pay-per-views that they're doing, you know how like they have WrestleMania, they have Extreme Rules, SummerSlam, you get those streamed, and once they're done, they'll still be available to watch at a later time. So, and like, take a look at WrestleMania, which is like $60-$70 to order in high def. If you're planning on buying WrestleMania anyway, and you're in the United States, the network pays for itself just by having WrestleMania. So the network, the WWE Network, is actually a really good deal, and I like the idea of it. And I'm actually considering getting it when it comes to Canada, but that won't be until later 2014. Okay, once again from @Discolius. What, if any, remakes could you have done without? The Game Boy Advance version of Final Fantasy IV, because we have the DS and therefore there's no need for that, for the downgrade in the music. Because Final Fantasy IV does have actually a pretty good soundtrack, so, and anyone who's played like the Game Boy Advance versions of Final Fantasies 4, 5, or 6, the soundtrack, the music is not up to the quality from the Super Nintendo. So, that's something that I felt could have really been done with. They could have done better with that. Even if it meant waiting for the next generation of systems, they could have waited. And I'm still hoping for a portable version of Final Fantasy VI with the music that actually comes over well enough. So, I could have done without 6. Or, 4. Right now I could have done without 4, and in the future I hope to have been able to do without 6. Because I want the better soundtrack. Quality. Okay, next question from Discolius. Do you get Bahamut before or after the Giant? Okay, I'm assuming you're talking about Final Fantasy IV. I always get Bahamut before. So like when I'm playing, like on the Super Nintendo version, for example, you can cast Wall on yourself, and if Bahamut gets to the Mega Flare, then if you have all 5 guys walled, then it bounces off all of your guys, none of your guys die, and then Mega Flare attacks Bahamut. So I always find it easier having Fusoya and Rosa to cast Wall on my guys. And when we get to the DS version, you can cast Meteor on him with Fusoya. So therefore, I prefer getting Bahamut beforehand. Plus, it lets me level grind. And I just like having higher levels. Okay, next question from @Discolius. What would you do for a Klondike bar? He actually asked me what I would do for a Klondike bar. Pay money for it. I'm not going to do anything special for it. It's just, I work. I have the money. I have like that maybe $2 or $3 that it would cost to get from a convenience store. And I would buy a Klondike bar. Okay, let's see. Next question. Whose backstories in Final Fantasy VI did you find most interesting? Knee-jerk reaction, Shadow. Because when you're going around the world of Ruin, you get the dream sequences if you have them in the party and you go to an inn, then you get these flashbacks. Basically, they hint at Shadow being Realm's father. That's something that if I were to do a sequel, then I would touch on that more. Let's see. Terra, of course, being half Vesper, half human, is one that I would consider to be among the more interesting. And that's not much of a spoiler. You find it out like in the first half of the game, so don't whine to me about spoiling it if you've never played it. You've had about 20 years to play it. Almost 20 years, so at this point there's no more spoilers, okay? Let's see, backstories I find interesting from Final Fantasy VI. Let's see, who else would have interest? I guess maybe also Celis, how she got into the Empire, and all that. But yeah, there are a lot of backstories in there that are worth mentioning. It's just that, of course, I don't want to be listing like 90% of the roster. So yeah. There you go. @Discolius. What's your favorite game on each system/handheld you have? Okay. Super Nintendo, obviously Final Fantasy VI. And for the sake of games that appear on different systems, I'm going to go with what I originally had it on. Now, I originally had Final Fantasy VI on the Super Nintendo, so that's what I'm going to go with. PlayStation, Final Fantasy VII. Let's see. My DS, Dragon Quest V is the first game that comes to mind. I know that it was originally on the Super Famicom. Unfortunately, I don't have the Japanese version of the Super Nintendo, and my first exposure to it was from buying it for the DS. And for the 3DS, I'm going to say The Link Between Worlds, the new Zelda game that just came out a few months ago. Let's see. Sega Genesis, I'll say Sonic the Hedgehog. The first one. Let's see. System. And I know I have a couple games for the N64. It's just been so long since I played it, I really can't name anything off of that. So there you go for my favorite game on each system / handheld. Next question from @Discolius is, who do you pick to fight Lavos? Playing Chrono Trigger? Okay, I always pick Chrono, Luca, and Robo, and I always have Robo in the third spot. Basically because I just like to run through. Whenever I face Lavos, it's like, okay, just completely run through him. I'll do like, when you're doing that, when you get inside Lavos, you have the first part where you deal with the two arms and the middle. So it's like Fire Whirl, Flare, and what was that? Oh yeah, Flare and Megavolt until both the arms are dead. And then just keep attacking him from there. And then when you get to the Lavos core, it's like Confuse on the healing bit, and then Robo Tackle on the left bit to make sure that it's dead, and then Flare to get the right bit to lower the defense, and then I alternate between Lumnair and Double Bomb, and that kills him pretty quickly. So that's who I use, and that's why. And that's it, actually. That was the final question, is who I picked to fight Lavos. So, thank you very much for watching. This is it for VGM for the time being. Or, not VGM. This is it for the Q&As for a while, because I have to now focus on the Naboxed Awards. So that's what I'm going to be doing next. It might take me a few weeks to put together, or however long it takes. It'll take me however long it takes. So stay tuned. I hope you enjoyed my Q&A series, and I'll see you whenever I get the Naboxed Awards done. Thank you for watching.